In June of 1983, a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army named Wayne M. McDonnell sat down to write a report that would, decades later, shatter the boundary between military intelligence and mysticism. The title was deliberately unassuming: Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process. It was classified, stamped, filed away, and for 30 years it sat in the dark, tucked inside the vaults of the CIA alongside documents about death drops, devil agents, and geopolitical warfare. Nobody was supposed to care about it. Nobody was supposed to find it. But in 2003, a Freedom of Information Act request dragged it into the light. And when researchers and spiritual seekers finally read those 29 pages, really read them, the reaction wasn't confusion. It was recognition, because this wasn't a report about espionage. It wasn't about surveillance or weapons. It was about something far more radical. It was about the architecture of consciousness itself. It was the United States government, the most powerful intelligence apparatus on earth, confirming what monks, mystics, and shamans have quietly known for thousands of years: that the human mind is not confined to the skull, that reality is not what it appears to be, and that there is a technology, a precise, repeatable, scientifically framed technology for stepping outside the ordinary limits of your body and the self and interacting directly with the fabric of the universe. Imagine for a moment that the room you're sitting in right now, the chair beneath you, the walls around you, the very air moving through their lungs isn't actually solid. Imagine that every object you have ever touched, every surface you ever seen, it's not a thing at all. It's a frequency, a pattern of vibrating energy organized so densely that your senses interpret it as matter. Side note on that, in vortex healing, we will call this the web of life, webbing that originates at the very moment that divinity has the intention to manifest and experience itself as consciousness, creating the ego itself all the way down, densifying through all dimensions until it becomes eventually everything in creation. Now, imagine the CIA proved that. Today, we are not trading in conspiracy theories. We are opening a declassified government document and reading it slowly, carefully, as the spiritual manual it actually is. We are going to decode the exact mechanisms the Gateway Project used to help trained subjects exit the body, accelerate the healing of the physical form, and, in the language the report itself uses, pattern a new reality into existence. We are going to give you the codes. Stay with me. We are going through the gateway. To understand how the CIA arrived here, you need to understand why they were looking in the first place. And for that, we have to go back to the paranoid corridors of the Cold War. It is the late 1970s. The Soviet Union is not building missiles. They are founding an entire classified program called psychotronics, the military study of the human mind as a weapon. Soviet researchers are investigating remote viewing, telepathy, and what they called psychic influence, the ability to affect physical systems at a distance using only thoughts. The Pentagon finds out, and the Pentagon does what the Pentagon always does. It panics quietly and then open its wallet. American intelligence agency begin their own research, Project Scanate, and then the famous Stargate program, pouring millions of dollars into understanding whether the human mind could genuinely transcend the limitations of space and time, whether a trained operative could see a location on the other side of the world without leaving their chair. They turned to a man named Robert Monroe. Monroe was not a mystic or a guru. He was a businessman, a radio and TV executive who, in the late 1950s, began having spontaneous out-of-body experiences that he could neither explain nor stop. Instead of pathologizing them, he did something extraordinary. He studied them. He developed a sound-based technology called Hemi-Sync, founded the Monroe Institute in Virginia, and began systematically training people to access altered states of consciousness on demand. The military took notice, and Colonel MacDonnell was sent to assess whether Monroe technology was real, whether it was scientifically coherent, whether it could be operationalized, or whether the United States government should be paying attention. His conclusion was unambiguous. Yes, yes, and hell yes. But what he wrote in those 29 pages went beyond military utility. He wrote a document that, if you have the ears to hear it, reads as nothing less than a scientific confirmation of the spiritual. The CIA called it the gateway. We are about to walk through it together. To understand the CIA methods, we have to stop thinking about the brain as a lump of gray matter and start thinking of it as a biological radio. A radio doesn't create a signal, it tunes to one. It adjusts its frequency until it locks into a broadcast that was already there, already transmitting, waiting to be received. The quality of what you hear depends entirely on the precision of your tuning. The Gateway Report is built on similar premises. The human brain, in its ordinary waking state, is a badly tuned radio, static everywhere. Two competing stations playing at once. That's the left brain and the right brain. And most of us spent our entire lives with them in conflict. The left brain is your inner accountant. It runs the logic, the language, the to-do list, the endless loop of worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. It is the voice that says, be practical, be realistic, that's not possible. The left brain is useful, but it is also, in many ways, a cage. The right brain is something else entirely. It's your inner mystic. It operates in pattern, image, intuition, and emotion. It is the part of you that has felt something shift before you could even explain it, that has sensed something was wrong before you had evidence, that reaches toward meaning, connection, and the infinite. In ordinary life, these two hemispheres rarely synchronize. They work at different frequencies, different rhythms, often pulling against each other. And the result is that most of us are operating at a fraction of our actual capacity, scattered, noisy, and disconnected from the deeper intelligence that the right brain is trying to access. The gateway process fixes this, and it does so using sound. Here is where the technology becomes genuinely remarkable. The CIA discovered, and the Monroe Institute had already demonstrated, something called frequency following response. Here is how it works. If you play a tone, say 200 hertz in your left ear, and the tone of 210 hertz in your right ear, something unusual happens. Because those two tones are slightly different, your brain cannot simply process them separately. It is forced to reconcile the difference, and to do so, it generates a third frequency internally, in this case, hertz, the mathematical difference between those two tones. That internally generated 10 hertz tone is called a binaural beat, and 10 hertz happens to fall squarely in the alpha brainwave range, the frequency associated with relaxed focus, creative insights, and the threshold between waking and dreaming. But this is only the beginning. By carefully designing the tones played through the headphones, Monroe's technology could guide the brain towards any desired frequency, deeper into theta waves associated with hypnagogic imagery, or even delta, the frequency of deep sleep, while the conscious mind remains awake. The military significance was immediately obvious, a technology that could train operatives to access altered states of consciousness quickly, reliably, and without years of meditation practice. But the deeper implication, the one that echoes through every spiritual tradition, is this: when both hemispheres synchronize, when the left brain and the right brain begin to vibrate at the same frequency, something shifts in consciousness itself. The internal noise drops away. The ego, that relentless inner critic, that voice of limitation and doubt, grows quiet, and in that quiet, something extraordinary becomes possible. The MacDonnell report describes this synchronized state using a term borrowed by physics: coherence. A coherent energy field is one where all the waves are aligned, moving together, reinforcing each other, building in amplitude rather than canceling each other out. Think of the difference between ordinary light and the laser beam. Both are light, but ordinary light scatters in every direction, diffuse and weak. A laser is a coherent light, all the waves aligned, all moving in the same direction, focused to a point of extraordinary intensity. The gateway process, the report argues, turned the human mind from a light bulb into a laser. And in that laser state, the report makes a claim that is either the most extraordinary thing a government document has ever stated, or the most important. It suggests that a coherent human consciousness begins to interact measurably with a larger field of energy it is embedded in, with the electrostatic field of the Earth, with what the report calls, without irony, the absolute. Now, let's talk about the specific states the gateway trains you to reach, because these aren't vague spiritual metaphors. The Monroe Institute gave them precise names and numbers, and the CIA documented them carefully. Focus 10 is the first major threshold. The Gateway Workbook describes it as mind awake, body asleep. In Focus 10, your physical body has entered the deep state relaxation, heart rate slowing, muscle releasing, the nervous system quieting, while your conscious awareness remains alert and present. You are aware that you are relaxed, but you are no longer receiving much information from your physical senses. The body in this state is no longer flooding the mind with its constant demands. The report describes this as critical, and here is why. In your ordinary waking state, roughly 90% of the brain processing power is devoted to managing the body and interpreting the physical senses. Focus 10 changes the ratio. By quieting the body's signals, it frees the mind to perceive more, to tune to frequencies that were always there, always broadcasting, but drowned out by the noise of the physical existence. In Focus 10, the left brain, the critic, the accountant, the voice of "that's impossible," finally steps back. And that, the report suggests, is the doorway to everything that follows. Focus 12 goes even further. Expanded awareness. In Focus 12, the sense of being local inside the body begins to dissolve. The ordinary three-dimensional frame of reference, I am here, the world is out there, begins to soften. The report describes subjects in this state as experiencing what can only be called a felt sense of connection to something larger than the individual self. And it is within Focus 12 that the most powerful codes of the gateway are assessed, including the one we are about to talk about next. But before we get there, I want you to sit with something. A government intelligence report, not a spiritual text, not a self-help book, but a military assessment document, describes the human consciousness in its coherent state as a point of awareness within what it's called a universal hologram, every part containing the whole, every mind a doorway to the absolute totality of what exists. This is not a metaphor borrowed from ancient mysticism. That is the conclusion of a US Army intelligence assessment. Let us settle. Now, before we go further, I want to give you something concrete, because everything I've described so far, the focus levels, the coherent states, the doorways into the absolute, might still feel like a concept rather than a reality, something that happened to train government operatives in a classified facility in Virginia. So let me tell you about the machine Monroe built to get you there. And I mean that word deliberately, machine, not a metaphor, not a ritual, an actual engineered step-by-step audio program that anyone can access. It's called the Gateway Experience, and it is the same program the CIA evaluated with the first album. There are 8 collections called Waves of Change. Each wave contains special Hemi-Sync exercise designed to gently lead the listener into progressively deeper states of expanded awareness. And each wave builds directly on the one before it. You don't skip ahead. You go through the water in sequence, and each level prepares your consciousness for what comes next. Let me walk you through all 8 waves. Wave 1, discovery. You are led from your physical waking state into deep relaxation and then into unexplored levels of your consciousness. This is when you first encounter Focus 10, mind awake, body asleep. You learn to separate your awareness from your physical senses while remaining fully conscious. The exercises have names like orientation, release, and recharge, and, significantly, exploration sleep, which begins training the mind to remain aware through states that ordinarily produce unconsciousness. This is the foundation, the first act of trust, learning that you can go deep and come back, that the quiet at the center of you is not a void, it's a doorway. Wave 2, threshold. This is where the program begins to give you tools. Wave 2 introduces Focus 12, the higher energy state of expanded awareness, alongside exercises including problem solving, 1-month patterning, color breathing to link mind and body for healing, the energy bar tool for directing non physical energies, and the living body map for balancing and strengthening the physical self. The patterning exercise in Wave 2 is a 1-month program. You begin working with the holographic field in a structured, intentional way. You are not just meditating, you are engineering your reality from the inside. You're free, freedom. It introduces remote viewing, the ability to perceive locations and events at a distance, and something called first stage separation, the first conscious, deliberate beginning of an out of body experience. There is an exercise in Wave 3 called 5 Questions, where you enter Focus 12 and receive answers directly from what Monroe called your total self, the deeper intelligence that knows things the surface mind does not. Wave 3 is where the gateway stops feeling like a relaxation program. Wave 4 provides the ultimate extraction beyond freedom, that of a personally controlled and directed adventure. Here, you work with 1-year patterning, an extended manifestation protocol that encodes your desired life not just for the next month, but for the next 12. You also encounter something called non-verbal communication, exercises designed to develop direct intuitive exchange that bypasses language entirely. Wave 4 is where the program stops treating you as a student and starts treating you as an explorer. You are no longer being guided carefully through unfamiliar territory. You are being trusted to navigate. Wave 5, exploring. Wave 5 introduces Focus 15, the no time state, the state of simply being. Here, far beyond your 5 physical senses, you can connect with the source of your intuition. Focus 15 is worth pausing on because what Monroe Institute is describing, a state in which the ordinary experience of linear time dissolves, is precisely what mystics and contemplatives have pointed towards for millennia. The eternal now of Eckhart Tolle, the timeless awareness of Buddhist practice, the in sof of Kabbalistic teaching. The CIA researchers gave it a number, Focus 15, and they designed an audio exercise, Mission 15, Creation and Manifestation, the most powerful available context for manifesting desired realities. Because when you're no longer located inside linear time, the gap between intention and outcome, the waiting, the not yet, begins to collapse. Wave 6, Odyssey, the bridge to other energy systems, and invites you to explore realms of awareness that defy description in dimensions beyond physical time-space reality. Focus 21 is the bridge. And what is on the other side of the bridge? The exercises tell you plainly, non-physical friends. Let me say that one again, non-physical friends. Described as meeting your helpers in energetic form, Hemi-Sync guides, presences, intelligences that are not localized in a physical body, but are, according to Monroe Institute's decades of documented research, genuinely contactable from within that expanded state. Wave 6 is where the program invites you to make contact, and the reports from people who have done this work are consistently amongst the most profound and life-altering of the entire series. Wave 7, Voyager. Beginning with Focus 21, Wave 7 guides you through the states of consciousness known as Focus 23, 25, and 27, realms populated by those who have departed from physical life, but remain unable to fully detach from the Earth energy systems. One objective stated in the program materials is to assist these individuals, to guide them towards what the program calls a reception center, where they can rest, review their experiences, and consider their next evolutionary steps. I want to say that one again plainly. A program originally evaluated by the CIA is in its later stages training people to interact with and assist the consciousness of the recently deceased. This is not a metaphor. This is not poetry. This is a documented exercise in a sequentially structured audio series. Wave 7 also includes an exercise called Messages from Beyond, direct communication exercise with those who have passed through physical death. Whether you perceive this as spiritual truth or as a fascinating frontier of consciousness research, the fact that it exists in the curriculum of the US government paid to evaluate should make something shift in you. Wave 8, Union. Wave 8 takes you into the deepest layers of Focus 27, including a healing and regeneration center, where you receive a personal experience of whatever healing, regeneration, or balancing you are most in need of. A planning center that oversees energy patterns in the Earth life system, a coordination area where you meet the energy beings responsible for maintaining this reality. And the final exercise of the entire 8-wave curriculum, it is simply called the Absolute, described as a unique opportunity to experience graduating from the Earth life system. That is the endpoint of the program the CIA paid to evaluate. That is what Monroe built. 8 waves, 50 plus exercises, a journey that begins with here is how to relax into a slightly deeper state of awareness and ends with a guided experience of transcending the entire framework of physical existence. This program is still available today. You do not need a clearance. You do not need to go to Virginia. You need a pair of headphones, a quiet room, and the willingness to go where the sounds leads you. The CIA opened this door. Monroe built a path through it, and the path has been sitting there, open and waiting for anyone with the courage to walk it. Now, let's talk about what happens when you do. Because the first major destination on that path, Focus 12, is where most powerful secrets of the entire gateway makes itself known. And it has a name the CIA gave it, the spiritual teachers have been using without knowing for centuries. Manifestation. They called it patterning. Now, most of us encounter the concept of manifestation. We have heard of The Secret. We have been told to visualize what we want, to think positively, to act as if. And most of us have tried it in one form or another with mixed results. Here is why. The popular version of manifestation is missing something fundamental. It mistakes wishing for engineering, and the CIA, characteristically, was not interested in wishing. They were interested in engineering. Patterning, as the Gateway Reports describes it, is not an act of hope. It is an act of precision. Let's start with the physics, or at least the physics as the report frames it. The McDonnell document draws heavily on the work of the physicist David Bohm, who proposed that the universe has a fundamental structure he called the implicate order, a deeper level of reality from which the physical world we experience is constantly unfolding. In Bohm's model, the physical universe is a kind of surface, a manifested expression of a deeper enfolded pattern. And crucially, that pattern can, in principle, be influenced. The report extends this into what is called the holographic universe model. If the universe is holographic, and there is a serious physics behind this idea, from Carl's Pribram's neuroscience to more recent theoretical work, then every part contains information about the whole. Your consciousness is not separate from the universe. It is a localized expression of it, a point through which the whole can know itself. And here is where it gets extraordinary. If your consciousness and the fabric of reality share the same holographic nature, then a sufficiently coherent, sufficiently precise pattern held in your consciousness is not merely a thought about reality. It is a pattern within reality. It is already at the level of the implicate order real. The question is only whether it surfaces into the physical, and that, the Gateway report suggests, depends on three specific conditions. The first requirement, high energy state. You cannot pattern from a scattered mind. You cannot manifest from a place of exhaustion, anxiety, or half-hearted hoping. The report is unambiguous on this point. If your consciousness is diffuse, thoughts spewing in 20 directions, emotion churning, the left brain chattering its objections, your signal is too weak to make a lasting impression. This is why Focus 12 matters. In Focus 12, you're operating as a coherent system. Your mental energy is not scattered, it is organized. You have, through the Hemi-Sync process, turned the light bulb into the laser, and only in that laser state is the mind powerful enough to project a pattern with enough intensity to interact meaningfully with the deeper structure of reality. The spiritual tradition have always known this, even without this language. Enter in your closet, the quiet room, the inner chamber, the place of stillness. Every tradition of prayer, meditation, or ritual is, at its core, an attempt to create this coherent state before the asking. The CIA just gave us the neurological mechanism. Second requirement, the objective pattern. And this is where popular manifestation teaching almost always falls short. The report is not asking you to think vaguely about a better life. It is asking you to build, to construct in your mind eye with the precision of an architect and the sensory richness of a film director, the exact reality you're intending to bring into form, not just the image, the feeling of the image, the smell, the texture, the emotional tone, the sense in the body of what is like to already be living inside the thing you're creating. The report describes this as creating a vibrational fact, not a wish about the future, not a fantasy you're watching from the outside, a fact, already present, already real, at the level of the implicate order, already encoded as a pattern that the physical world must eventually reflect. This is the difference between daydreaming and engineering. Daydreaming is passive, engineering is intentional. You are not hoping the universe gives you something. You are coding a new instruction into the system from which the universe generates your experience. Think about what that means. Every sensory detail you add to your pattern is not decoration, it's data. The more precisely and vividly you construct that inner reality, the more coherent the signal you are transmitting into the holographic field. And the more coherent signals produce a more reliable result. This is why the CIA approached the manifestation as an engineering project, because they understood that precision matters, that clarity matters, that the quality of your inner construction directly determines the quality of what eventually manifests in your outer world. Third requirement, the release. This is the one that most people find hardest, and the one that makes the most profound sense once you understand the physics. Once the pattern is set, once you have reached Focus 12, build a vibrational fact with full sensory richness and emotional intensity, the report says you must release it into the absolute. You have to let it go. Not let go of the intention, but let go of the wanting. And here is why. In the language of the report's physics, it's a technical requirement. The act of wanting something implies a gap. It implies a distance between where you are and what you desire. And if you are still waiting while you are patterning, then the code you are sending into the holographic field is not that I have this, is I lack this. And the hologram, with perfect fidelity, will reflect the lack back to you. The spiritual traditions have called this faith, trust, surrender. The Zen teachers call it non-attachment. Every mystical system, in its own language, arrives at the same technical conclusion. Act from the completed state, not from the wanting state. The CIA version of once the pattern is set, release it into the absolute and let the system process it. You have done with the coding, now let the computer run. The only question is why you haven't been using the military-grade version of it yet. Okay, we have talked about the matrix, we have talked about patterning reality, Now, let's talk about the most personal frontier of all, your body. Because the Gateway Report doesn't stop at manifestation, it goes further. It makes a claim about the physical form that, if you fully let it land, will change the way you experience illness, pain, and the process of healing itself. The claim is your body is not a solid object, it is a frequency. The report draws on established physics here, specifically on understanding that at the subatomical level, what we call matter is almost entirely empty space. What gives objects an apparent solidity is not substance, but force. Electromagnetic fields, quantum interactions, pattern of energy organized into the stable configuration we experience as cells, tissue, and bone. Your body, at its deepest level, is a vibrational system, an extraordinarily complex, extraordinarily precise pattern of energy, held in coherence by processing we don't yet fully understand, but which the Gateway Report suggests are intimately connected to the coherence of consciousness itself. If the body is a vibrational system, then illness is not a malfunction. It is not a failure. It is not something happening to you from outside. It is a dissonance, a disruption in the pattern, an area of the system that has lost its coherence, that is no longer vibrating in alignment with the template of health that, the report suggests, exists as a kind of holographic blueprint within your own deeper nature. And if the dissonance is the problem, coherence is the solution. The Gateway Workbook introduces two specific tools for working with the body's energy in this way. The first is called REBAL, the Resonant Energy Balloon. Here is how it works. In Focus 10, the mind awake, body asleep state, you are guided to build an energy field around your physical body. You visualize a point of intense light or energy at the top of your head, and you allow that energy to sweep downward, around the outside of your body, past your feet, back up through your core, and out the crown again. A continuous loop, a self-sustaining field. The report describes this field as doing several things simultaneously, strengthens the coherence of your own energetic system. It establishes a boundary, not a wall, but a frequency field that tends to repel or transform incoherent energies before they reach you. And it creates the optimal inner environment for the deeper healing work that follows. You can think of it as creating the conditions for healing to occur. The second tool is one of the most striking of the entire Gateway workbook, color briefing. In Focus 10, with the rebal established, you are guided to visualize a specific color and breathe it intentionally, deliberately, into the areas of the body that need attention. The Gateway assigns specific frequencies, specific colors to specific intentions. For physical healing, the primary color is green, the frequency of growth, repair, and cellular renewal. For a deeper systematic reset, for clearing energetic blockages that have accumulated over years, the workbook points to royal purple or violet. Color is frequency. This is not spiritual language, it is physics. Every color in the visible spectrum corresponds to a specific electromagnetic frequency measured in terahertz. Red is approximately 400 terahertz. Violet is approximately 750 terahertz. And the idea that different frequencies interact differently with biological systems, it is the basis of photobiomodulation, of light therapy, of research conducted in mainstream medical settings. The Gateway process suggests that in the altered state of Focus 10, where the ordinary processing demands of the body have quieted and the mind is operating with unusual coherence, the visualization of a specific color frequency can have an effect analogous to receiving that frequency physically. That the mind, in a coherent state, can use the internal representation of a healing frequency to deliver something real to the cells that need it. Is this proven by double-blind clinical trials? Not in those terms. But the Gateway Report is not making a claim about clinical medicine. It is describing a frontier, a set of techniques that lie at the edge of what Western science currently knows how to measure, and it is documenting that trained subjects using these techniques reported results. Here is the deeper principle behind all of it. The report suggests that your body has an innate self-corrective mechanism, an intelligence within the system that is constantly working towards health, towards balance, towards holographic blueprints of your optimal form. This is not controversial. Western medicine calls it homeostasis. Your body knows how to fight an infection, it knows how to restore balance, given half a chance. But what gets in the way? The left brain, the repeated, reinforced, emotionally charged thought pattern that says, I'm sick, this doesn't heal, my body's failing. The Gateway report is remarkably clear on this point. The most significant block to the body's self-corrective intelligence is the conscious mind belief that healing is not possible. The Gateway process bypasses that block. In Focus 10, the left brain, the voice of limitation, has stepped back. The ego, with its investment in the story of the illness, have quieted, and in that quiet, the body deeper intelligence, supported by coherent signals of a focused, intentional mind, can work. Now, I want to give you something you can use tonight. Buried in the Gateway Intermediate Workbook, a companion document to the Declassified program, there is a section called Daily Tools, and the heading it says for use in your physical waking life, not for use inside a deep meditative session, not for trained operatives only. Daily tools for ordinary life. The CIA, through the Monroe Institute, developed a set of numeric and color codes designed to interact directly with the body's energy field. Think of them as a shorthand commands. They bypass the analytical left brain and go straight to the energetic substrate of the body. Let me give them to you one by one. I want you to really hear this. The first code, 55515. Pain reduction. This is the most documented, most widely discussed code in the entire Gateway archive. Here is the exact instruction from the workbook. Close your eyes, direct your attention to the part of your body where the pain is originating. Look at it, not with judgment, not with fear, but with the calm, neutral attention of a scientist observing data. And then, in your mind, repeat the number sequence 55515. That's it. 55515 over and over until the pain signal diminishes. The workbook states plainly that when you do both of these things, the focused attention and the repetition of the code, the pain signals will slowly reduce until they are no longer important. Now, why a number sequence? Numbers in these frameworks are not arbitrary. They are frequencies expressed symbolically. The specific sequence 55515 is understood within the Gateway system as a kind of neural interrupt, a pattern that the mind uses to redirect the brain processing of pain signals at the level beneath conscious thought. What makes this even more fascinating, in the year 2000, decades after the workbook was written, molecular geneticists cataloged a gene related to pain reception in the human body. Its official scientific identifier, gene 55515, expressed primarily in the pituitary gland, the brain's master regulator, and directly implicated in how the body processes pain signals. Whether that is a coincidence or whether Monroe's researchers knew something that mainstream science hadn't yet formally named, I'll leave you that for you to sit with. But understand what that means practically. The next time you are in physical pain, a headache, a tight muscle, a chronic ache, before you reach for anything external, try this first. Eyes closed, attention on the source, 55515. Repeat it, hold your focus steady, and notice what happens to your body. This is a daily tool. You don't need Focus 10, you don't need headphones or a darkened room. You need your attention and the code. That's it. The second code, green breathing, emotional release. Most of us are walking around with emotional weight we don't even register anymore. Anxiety, old grief, chronic low-level stress that has been pressed into the body so long it feels like simply who we are. The Gateway Workbook has a specific protocol for clearing it. Here is how to use it. Wherever you are, seated, laying down, even standing, take a long, slow exhale through your mouth, and as you exhale, bring to the mind the color green. Not a pale, washed-out green. A vibrant, living, saturated green. The green of new growth, of spring leaves in the sunlight. of life itself. The workbook describes what happens next in precise terms. The green frequency pushes all excess harmful emotional charge downward through your entire physical system, through the body, through the legs, and out through the soles of your feet, into the earth. Gone. In spiritual traditions, this will be called grounding or cleansing. In the gateway framework, it's an energetic flush using a specific color frequency to move stagnant, incoherent emotional energy out of the system. Use this at any time you feel emotionally congested, anytime anxiety is building up and you cannot identify why. Anytime you have been in a difficult conversation, one deliberate exhale, think green, let it move downward and out. The third code, purple, heal, balance, physical repair. This is the most specific of all the healing codes, and the workbook gives a very precise protocol. Find the areas of your body that needs attention. An area of chronic pain, inflammation, injury, illness. Wherever you feel the dissonance, close your eyes. Bring to mind the color purple. Deep, cool, royal purple. Not violet, not lavender. The deep, saturated purple of healing and restoration. Now breathe that color into the area. Imagine the purple frequency entering the cells, the tissue, the field of that area, like cool water entering a hot space. And as you do, say these two words in your mind: heal, balance. That's the command. 2 words, precise, intentional, delivered directly to the energetic field of the affected area. And here is the details that I want you to hold on to, because the workbook is very specific on this point. It says never energize the problem itself. Never put your focus and feeling into the image of what is wrong. Even as you send purple energy to the area, always end the process by seeing, feeling, sensing the body as already well. Well, perfect. Functioning exactly as it was designed to function. Why? Because the holographic field, in the language of the report, does not understand negation. It simply reflects what you hold into your consciousness with the most energy and emotional intensity. If you are intensely focused on illness, you are coding illness. The gateway is asking you to code health, to hold the completed picture, not the problem picture. Send the purple, say heal, balance, and then see yourself whole. Always complete the sequence with the imagery of wholeness. The fourth code is red energy, strength, action. This one is not about healing, it's about power. The workbook assigns red energy specifically for moments when you need physical speed, strength, coordination, or decisive action. Athletes, performers, anyone who needs to access their full physical capacity on demand. The protocol is simple. Before the moment of action, take a breath and bring the energy of vibrant red, bright, vital, electric red through your system. Feel it in the muscles, in the hands, in the core, and then exhale and act. Red is not a healing frequency in the gateway system, it is an activation frequency. Keep that distinction clear. Purple for repair, red for performance. Use the right code at the right purpose. Code is white light, energy food. This is perhaps the most nourishing tool in the entire daily section. Turn your palms upward, close your eyes, visualize a source of radiant, pure white light above you. Brilliant, warm, inexhaustible. Now breathe in through the palms of your hands. Feel it travel up through the arms and spread through every system of the body as you inhale, every cell receiving it, every layer of you, physical, mental, and emotional, being nourished. The workbook states this can replenish you on all levels simultaneously, not just physical energy, the whole integrated system of you. Use this in the morning before a demanding day. Use it when you feel hollow and cannot explain why, or when conventional rest is not enough, because what is depleted is not the body, it's the field. The sixth code, right hand to forehead, memory, recall. This final daily tool, one of the most immediately practical in the entire program. Place the fingers of your right hand softly against the center of your forehead, your third eye space, though the workbook does not call it like that. Apply the slightest, most gentle pressure, and then, in your mind, clearly state what is it I want to remember. The workbook states, without elaboration, that when you do this, you will recall and remember immediately that which you continuously desire, used by the gateway practitioners for decades for everything from recovering lost memories to accessing intuitive information to simply finding where they put their keys. It is a direct line to the deeper retrieval system of consciousness, systems that the gateway framework suggests do not forget anything ever, but that require the right signal to surface the information. 6 codes: pain reduction, emotional clearing, physical healing, physical activation, full system nourishment, and memory access. Not 6 steps from an ancient text or a spiritual tradition. 6 documented techniques from a classified government workbook under a section explicitly marked for use in your physical waking life. The CIA researchers spent years refining these tools. They were tested, documented, and filed away. And for decades, almost nobody knew they existed. Color breathing and the rival are not magic. They're tools for creating the optimal internal conditions for something your body already knows how to do. You are not forcing healing, you are removing the interference that was preventing it. A government intelligence agency, training people to sit in stillness, reach a state of expanded awareness, and vibrate themselves back into health by interacting with the energetic blueprints of their own bodies, not because someone had a dream about it, because they tested it, because it worked. Before we reach the conclusion, we have to ask the uncomfortable question. If this technology works, and the report suggests it does, why are we only hearing about it now? Why was it classified? Why was it buried? Some of it is a psychic arms race, doesn't benefit either side if the other side knows your capabilities. Some of it is institutional. The kind of findings documented in the Gateway report are profoundly difficult to integrate into existing frameworks of medicine, psychology, or intelligence gathering. But there is a third possibility. If every person had access to the gateway, if every person knew that they could reach focus 10, pattern the reality they desired, and use color breathing to participate in their own healing, then the system that currently profits from human helplessness will face a serious problem. Fear-based media, pharmaceutical dependency for conditions that have energetic roots, consumer culture built on manufactured luck, the entire architecture of modern life that depends, at some level, on people believing that they are powerless to change their circumstances, that suffering is inevitable, that the body fails randomly, that reality is something that happens to you rather than through you. The Gateway Report is, at its core, a document about power, not military power, not institutional power, but the power that lives inside every human consciousness, that has always lived there, and that has, for reasons that are worth examining honestly, been largely kept from view. Now, I want to be responsible here. The Gateway Workbook includes explicit safety protocols, and they are worth taking seriously. The first and most important is the energy conversion box. Before any gateway sessions, before you attempt to reach focus 10, before you attempt patterning or color breathing, you are instructed to do something simple but essential. Visualize a container, heavy, solid, sealed, and place into it everything you're carrying: your anxieties, your grievances, your unfinished mental conversations, the weight of your to-do list. Shut the lid, set it aside. This is not a spiritual nicety, a spiritual energetic protection, whatever you want to call it. The report frames it as a technical necessity. Fear is an incoherent frequency. Anxiety scatters the signal. If you attempt to pattern from a place of unresolved fear, you are not projecting a clean signal into the holographic field. You are transmitting a mixed one, and the results will reflect the mixture. The workbook also warns of something it calls click out, sudden loss of consciousness that some subjects experienced when the energy load in deep focus states exceeded what the conscious mind could integrate. This is not dangerous in the sense that it causes physical harm, but it is a signal that the system is moving faster than the person is prepared for. The gateway, it is not a technique to be rushed. It is a practice to be approached with patience, with preparation, and with respect for the depth of what you are engaging with. The container, the ritual clearing, the slow, progressive deepening of practice. These are not just nice ideas, these are the difference between a powerful experience and an overwhelming one. And perhaps that is the final teaching of the Gateway's shadow, that access to this kind of power requires a corresponding degree of inner readiness. The cage, as the report implies it, has always had an unlocked door, but walking out on it, choosing freedom over the familiar comfort of limitation, requires something. It requires the willingness to become someone who no longer needs the cage. We have covered a great deal of ground today, my dear seekers. We have traced the origin of the Gateway Project from the Cold War arms race into the frontier of human consciousness. We've explored Hemi-Sync and how the synchronization of the brain's two hemispheres create a coherent, laser-like state of awareness that the report calls the foundation of everything that follows. We have decoded the three requirements of patterning, aka manifesting: the high energy state, the objective pattern, the release into the absolute. We have examined the body as a vibrational system and the way tools like the Ribal and color briefing work with the body's own self-corrective intelligence to create the conditions for healing. And we've sat with the uncomfortable question of why this knowledge was buried and what it means that it is now finally free. But I want to close with something that I think is the most important sentence in the entire McDonnell report. Not the most technical, not the most dramatic, the most true. It appears near the end. After 29 pages of quantum mechanics and neurophysiology and carefully measured language, after all the military framing and the institutional caution, after everything the report needed to be in order to be taken seriously, it says, in essence, we are all part of a single unified system of consciousness. There is no fundamental separation between the individual mind and the absolute, from which it emerges. What we experience as the self is a localized focus within a universal field, and that field is, at its core, intelligent, creative, and responsive. Let it in. You are not a person who occasionally has spiritual experiences. You are a point of consciousness in an infinite intelligent field, temporarily localized into a body, temporarily experiencing yourself as a separate, temporarily playing by the rules of the physical world. The gateway is not a technique you have to learn. It is a nature you have to remember. The stillness of Focus 10 is not an achievement, it's what you are beneath the noise. The patterning is not a power you acquire, it is what consciousness does when it operates without the interference of a mind that has been trained not to believe in itself. The healing is not a miracle, it is the body returning to its own blueprint when the consciousness holding it finally gets out of the way. You do not need a CIA clearance to access this. You do not need equipment or a bunker in Virginia or a classified workbook. You need stillness, you need intention, you need the willingness to take seriously the possibility that you are far more powerful than you have been told. The report ends not with a strategy, not with a recommendation, but with a philosophical statement that no intelligence document should, by rights, contain. And yet, there it is on page 29, filed alongside documents about death drops and geopolitical surveillance. We are the absolute experiencing itself. The gateway is open. It has always been open and is waiting right now in the silence beneath your thought for you to walk through. I'm your host, Magical Mara, and you've been listening to Seekers of Grace. Thank you for being here and thank you for listening. Thank you for being willing to go through the gateway with me today. Follow Seekers of Grace on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and most podcast platforms. Don't forget to visit magicalmara.co.uk and sign up to the mail list to join the community and get news, offers, events, and the latest episode of Seekers of Grace delivered straight to your inbox. So stay tuned, enjoy the wave where infinite possibilities to become real at Magical Mara. www.hemisync.co.uk. Until next time, remember, the truth of what you are is that your love and compassion, your boundless creative potential. Remember, you are that from which you originated from. You are magic, my friend. You are magic. I love you. Ciao for now.